And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Monday, August 5th. I am the host for today's program, Paul Demain, and many of the stories read here can be found in our publication, which is still in print, News from Indian Country, or online at IndianCountryNews.com. And here are some of the news stories for the day. A Cherokee Nation attorney said August 2nd that a 3-year-old girl will be devastated if she is adopted by a South Carolina couple and taken away from her biological father, who is a member of the tribe, in a case tribal members say could affect Native children and their families nationwide. Christy Nemo, an assistant attorney general for the Oklahoma-based tribe, said Dustin Brown has been raising his daughter, Veronica, for the past 19 months, and the legal battle over her adoption has been emotionally draining. The U.S. Supreme Court on August 2nd denied Brown's request to stay the adoption of his daughter that was finalized by a South Carolina judge on July 31st. State courts initially sent Veronica to live with Brown in Oklahoma in 2011, citing the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act, which seeks to keep Indian children from being taken from their homes and placed with non-Native adoptive or foster parents. The Capo Biancos appealed the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court. Nemo said the Cherokee Nation supports Brown's attempt to regain custody of his daughter. 2 Native villages on Alaska's remote St. Lawrence Island are reporting their smallest walrus harvest in memory. Residents of Gamble and Savunga say people are hurting not just in the lack of walrus meat, but also in the lack of walrus tusks. With few employment opportunities, many in the 2 Yupik Eskimo villages are carvers who rely on money from the sales of ivory artwork. According to locals, the typical annual harvest of walrus, based on a 10-year average, is 675 animals for Gamble and 578 for Savunga. This year, Gamble residents harvested 108 walrus, with another 76 taken by Savunga. Gamble Tribal President Atty says the 2 villages are working together on issuing a disaster declaration. Lac Courte Oreilles tribal members gathered last week on Loon Island on the Chippewa Flowage of northern Wisconsin to honor 2 residents whose families came from the region before the U.S. government condemned the land, removed tribal members from it, and allowed it to be flooded for electrical use for downstream industries. Phyllis DeBro and Sam Jockey were both present during a huge feast and gathering on one of the islands created when the winter dam was closed in and around 1921 and finally filled to capacity on August 1st, 1923. For family, friends, and neighbors, it was an important opportunity to remember again the policies of the state and federal government that deprived Anishinaabe people of their lands and resources long after the signing of the treaties. Here is LCO Vice Chairman Rusty Barber speaking during the event.
Land here, and today we have 2 special people here that lived up during that time. And there's pictures taken here that are on the placard as evidence of the tragedy that took place for our people. And I know that Phyllis and Sam can remember their parents and their grandparents crying and asking, why is this being done? Why did they have to cut our forest down? Why did they have to flood our once good land here where in the books they said that they had 25,000 pounds of wild rice on an annual basis. To use this to survive through the winter months. And back then things were hard. Things weren't given for a tribal office to run to. But they went out in hard work. And these generational homelands of our Lac Courte Oreilles people here, the Odawas, the Gaiganing, and the Anishinaabe. This is ours right here. We have our ancestors here that are underneath that water that were never relocated. We have villages here, homes underneath the water memories that our two elders here, Archaeological, are people that have lived a long life and are here that can remember those times, and hopefully they can talk just a little bit of how it felt during that time. And I know I heard Bodie and Tim on the radio coming back from Baraga at a powwow. And over there they're doing a cultural revitalization also to bring back our culture, our language, and our ceremonies. And today, the seventh generation, our young people are here. Some of them are learning our language, the ceremonies. And I heard on that radio through Tim and Bodie and a lot of them, we have to remember. We have to pass on our history, our traditions, so that our young people will never forget. And not to let anybody else forget what happened to our once great land here. And so, before we get going with the ceremony, I just wanted to share a word from our chair, who wasn't able to be here today. He's over in Fond du Lac, remembering another time back in 1936. They wanted to remove us from our ancestral homelands here, out to the west. But Chief Buffalo went to Washington out of Red Cliff and told him, said, we're going to stay here. If you want a war, we'll give you a war, but we'll never leave. And so we thank all of our elders back then. But it goes, dear tribal members, I regret that I cannot attend this important event commemorating the people of Kwewang who suffered such great losses. I am attending the Sandy Lake Memorial commemorating another great loss of life by our Ojibwe ancestors. It is because of the strength of our elders and culture that our people have continued to survive in the face of a legacy of genocide. I want to thank the organizers of this event. It is extremely important that we never forget that those who have sacrificed so much are the events that have had such significant impacts on us. We will keep gathering to honor our ancestors and carry our ways forward. Miigwech, Michael McIsom, Jr., Chairman, Lac Courte Oreilles Tribal Governing Board. And we thank him for remembering this day and leaving us some words to go by. At this time,
a team of archaeologists, historic preservationists, and students is combing the grounds of the historic Stewart Indian School in Carson City. The excavation is a joint effort by the University of Nevada, Reno's Department of Anthropology, the Nevada Indian Commission, and the Washoe Tribal Historic Preservation Office. The 110-acre site has more than 50 buildings. The district is on the National Register of Historic Places and is deteriorating rapidly, said Sherry Rupert, Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. Many of the buildings were built in the early 1900s and sit unoccupied, adding the urgency to protect those buildings. The Stewart Indian School was open for 90 years, from 1890 to 1980, with a federal mandate to educate Indian children and acclimate them into mainstream American culture. They were taught reading, writing, arithmetic, and vocational trades such as masonry, carpentry, and ranching. Girls took classes in baking, cooking, sewing, and practical nursing. A flag-raising ceremony was conducted last week in the Pinocchio Mountains Heritage Park at the LCO Harvest Camp near Upson, Wisconsin, to replace 3 flags stolen by criminals at the entranceway during July. The flags, according to bar rumors, were stolen as a trophy by pro-open pit mining forces in Iron County, where the Harvest Camp is located. Replacement flags included the Lac Courte Oreilles, Red Cliff, and Bad River Ojibwe flags, Ho-Chunk Nation, Ojibwe Iroquois Wampum Belt replica, State of Wisconsin flag, a Tibetan flag from the Dalai Lama, in addition to the Indian Joe Treaty Support flag and St. Croix tribal flag. Melvin Gasper, camp spokesman, said he expected other tribes to contribute their flags as well, as word of the original theft continues to circulate Indian country. South Dakota Secretary of State Jason Gant says he won't create satellite voting offices on 3 American Indian reservations unless the U.S. Election Assistance Commission approves spending federal money on the project. But the Argus Leader reports that the commission can't issue advisory opinions because the 4 commission seats are vacant. Commission spokesman Brian Whitener says the commission needs a quorum to set rules and guidelines. 3 tribes and a voting advocacy group have asked Gant and the State Elections Board to spend federal money to open satellite voting offices in Fort Thompson, Eagle Butte, and Wombly. And that's going to be another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to say miigwech, or thank you for joining with us, and come back again soon.